If you have been considering fake grass for dogs or pet turf for your home or business, then you have come to the right place. I'm Kevin with the Turf Network, and in this video, I will be exploring fake grass for dogs and hopefully answering any questions and addressing any concerns you may have about this pet-friendly ground cover. So without further ado, let's dive right in. First up, we have basically everything that I will cover in this video, beginning with what is fake grass for dogs, and then looking at the differences between fake grass for dogs, also known as pet turf, and traditional artificial grass, the pros and cons of pet turf, what features you should look for when shopping for or considering a pet turf product, pet turf compared to other pet-friendly landscaping options, the costs of installation and maintenance, when you can expect a return on your investment, and lastly, some financing and cost-saving tips. So let's get started. First up, what is fake grass for dogs? Fake grass for dogs is a type of artificial grass that is designed specifically for dogs. You may also hear it referred to as canine grass. You've heard me mention it multiple times as pet turf. Then we have artificial grass for dogs, dog turf, pet-friendly synthetic grass. That's just a few. So you'll hear it referred to as a number of different things. All of those names are basically referring to the same thing, fake grass for dogs. And throughout this presentation, just because it's much easier to say, I'll be using pet turf interchangeably with fake grass for dogs, just to keep things simple. So first up, pet turf versus artificial grass. What's the difference? Why can't I just get regular artificial grass and have my dogs use it? The three biggest differences: the first is material quality, the second is the backing or drainage that your artificial grass is equipped with, and the third is a relatively new feature on pet-friendly turf products, is antimicrobial protection, which works to combat the buildup of odors from dog urine, which over time will happen on any turf product. The most important difference between the two is the drainage. Because your dog will be peeing, or dogs will be peeing on your turf, it needs to drain that liquid as quickly and efficiently as possible. So pet turf products, generally speaking, will have a fully permeable backing. That's usually the biggest differentiating factor between pet turf and artificial grass, is how it facilitates drainage, which we'll cover in more detail a little bit later. So what are the pros and cons of fake grass for dogs? First up, we have the pros, or advantages, of pet turf. Low maintenance, one of the biggest advantages of artificial grass in general. Durability, especially when compared to a living ground cover like natural grass. Cleanliness, synthetic grass is a lot cleaner. You don't have to deal with mud or dirt, and muddy paw prints can be a thing of the past. Safety, allergen free, as in pet turf doesn't produce allergens like grass. And then pest free, insects, ticks, fleas, even any of the small little creepy crawlies you might be used to on your natural grass lawn don't have the nutrients they need to survive in synthetic grass. So therefore they generally avoid it. The disadvantages or cons of pet turf, first being the initial cost. Artificial grass in general requires a pretty decent upfront investment compared to other landscaping options. Heat retention, which there are some workarounds or solutions to that, but it's pretty unavoidable, especially if you live in a warmer climate like California or Texas, where exposure to the sun is pretty much unavoidable, and the temperatures in the summer are going to get pretty high. That can be mitigated with simply spraying your artificial grass with a hose before you let your dog out, and you just give it a quick spray. Or you can use a cooling infill, which we'll cover later, but there are infill materials, which is an essential component of most pet turf installations. There are infill materials that are able to cool the turf through a process of evaporative cooling. They basically trap moisture from rain when you spray it with a hose or the morning dew, and then slowly release it over time. And that evaporation cools the turf. And I'll get into more detail on it later, but it basically can supposedly, according to companies that offer cooling infill products, can reduce the temperature by 30 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a pretty significant amount. And the last disadvantage is installation complexity. Being that drainage is so important on pet-friendly turf installations, the installation and ensuring it's done properly, especially the base, which can be thought of as like the foundation of your turf installation, is extremely important. So making sure that that's done 100% correct is extremely important to make sure that your installation not only looks good, but performs well throughout the lifespan of your artificial grass or pet turf. What to look for when selecting fake grass for dogs. Here's just an overview of some of the features and materials that you should be paying attention to when speaking with a turf installer or an artificial grass retailer. You have face weight, pile height, the base material, as mentioned previously, a fully permeable backing, the infill material, antimicrobial protection, UV protection, and a solid warranty. I'll cover each of these elements in the coming slides one at a time. I think technically some of them two at a time. Like right now we have face weight and pile height. Face weight is the weight of fibers per square yard expressed in ounces. The range of face weights is usually like 40 to 90 ounces, and the face weight is literally just the fibers. It does not include the backing. There's a separate metric for that, oddly enough called back weight. But for the purposes of this, the face weight is the most important metric, and the best for dogs is around 60 ounces per square yard. The pile height is the actual length of the individual turf fibers, measured from the backing to the tip of the fibers. The length of fibers ranges from about a ½ inch to 2+ inches, and for dogs, the best range is 3/4 of an inch to 1¼ inches. And the reason for a shorter pile height being advantageous with dogs is basically when your dog poops on the turf, you don't want it to be wedged in between long turf fibers. So the shorter fibers act more like spikes, and basically when your dog poops, sorry for the visual, but it's the best I can do. When your dog poops, it kind of sits on top of the fibers and makes it a lot easier for you to clean up. So it's like a spiky bed of nails that the poop just kind of rests on, and you can just come and pick it up and don't have to worry about cleaning up a big mess. With longer fibers, that solid waste from your dog can work its way between the fibers and just makes it more difficult to clean that up and keep it clean. Also, the shorter pile height will facilitate drainage more efficiently. As you can see in the picture on the screen, the fibers are laying in one direction. Granted, there isn't infill on that turf product, but the grain of the fibers, or the direction that they tilt, is just a natural occurrence on any turf product. The infill will act to correct that grain, or basically stand those fibers upright. But on very long fibers, they're still going to lilt in one direction, and that can make it more difficult for pet urine to make its way down to the backing and drain into the base material below. So a pile height of 3/4 to 1¼ inches is the optimal range for pet-friendly turf products. The base material, I have 4 options up here. These are the 4 most common materials used to create the base on artificial grass installations. The first is crushed miscellaneous base, also sometimes referred to as CMB. Then we have Class 2 road base and decomposed granite, which for pets are the 2 best options, simply because they are very effective at maintaining a solid foundation for your turf installation, and they also are very permeable once compacted and facilitate drainage better than alternatives. The last option is crushed aggregate base, which is another budget-friendly option. And the base is basically a mix of rocks down to basically a fine dust, beginning at about 3/4 of an inch, all the way down to, like I said, dust. Those are mixed together and spread over your installation area, and then wet with a hose. And your installer, or whoever's installing the turf, will then use a heavy roller, or ideally a plate compactor, and will do basically a spiral shape inwards, compacting that base material, because you want a solid and unchanging of a base for your artificial turf as is possible, to ensure that it maintains its aesthetics and function throughout the life of the installation. So the fully permeable backing is extremely important on pet turf products. There are pet turf products that do not have a fully permeable backing. That isn't bad per se, but a hole punch backing, which is the most common alternative to a fully permeable backing, is a lot less efficient. It drains about like 30 inches of water per hour, whereas a fully permeable backing can drain 500 to up to 1,500 inches of water per hour, or urine for that matter. The fully permeable backing can drain urine or water at any point in the backing, so it does not matter where your dog goes to the bathroom. The dog urine is able to pass through any point, also sometimes referred to as like edge-to-edge drainage, or a flow-through backing, as in liquids flow right through the backing without being held up like you'll have on a hole punch turf product, where the holes are spaced 4 to 6 inches apart, and the area between those holes is a space where urine can settle. And while it may evaporate, it will leave behind a residue, and over time that residue can build up, causing odors in your turf, which isn't very pleasant. So the infill material, as mentioned before, the infill helps hold the turf fibers upright, and also serves another extremely important purpose in acting as ballast or weight. It keeps your turf from shifting. So the infill is extremely important for a turf installation, and on the screen right now are the 3 most popular infills for pet-friendly installations. The first is EnviroFill, which is the original antimicrobial infill. I'm sorry, my head's in the way, but that says antimicrobial infill. And then the T-Cool infill in the middle is also antimicrobial and offers cooling properties, or is a cooling infill that traps moisture and then slowly releases it. As it releases it, it cools the surface temperature of your turf by, supposedly, according to T-Cool, up to between 30 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Zeofill is a mineral-based infill. The EnviroFill and T-Cool are both sand-based or silica-based. The Zeofill is made of zeolite, which is a mineral that is very odor-absorbing and also offers cooling properties, since it traps moisture and, again, slowly releases it. And on their website, they also state that it can cool turf by 30 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit as well. So in terms of infill, these are the 3 most popular for pet installations. I do not recommend using silica sand or using it as a standalone infill, which is the most basic form of infill you can have. The problem with that being that it can clump together, or tends to clump together, when dogs pee on it, which can obviously cause issues with your turf installation. So one of these 3 infills would be ideal because of their antimicrobial protection, and for T-Cool and Zeofill, their cooling properties. So 3 more things to look for is antimicrobial protection, and that is built into turf products, or pet-friendly turf products, UV protection, and a good warranty. Antimicrobial and UV protection are physical features of pet-friendly turf products. Most turf products will have UV protection, or at least most turf products that are manufactured in the United States. Because the sun is extremely damaging to materials, the UV protection helps prevent premature product degradation. Antimicrobial protection incorporated into fake grass for dogs or pet-friendly turf products is added in the same manner as UV protection, obviously serving a different purpose, it prevents the buildup of odors and bacteria, microbial growth. Basically helps keep your turf as clean as possible, even though your dog is using it basically as a giant bathroom. And both the antimicrobial protection and UV protection are incorporated into the plastics themselves. So they're most often incorporated into the turf fibers. The fibers are made by melting down pellets of polyethylene, polypropylene, or nylon. Most often polyethylene, as that's the most popular material for turf products. So the polyethylene is melted down using pellets, and the antimicrobial and UV protection is added to those pellets in pellet form itself and melted down. So the antimicrobial protection and UV protection is infused into the plastics of the turf product itself. So you don't have to worry about them being wiped off or wearing out over time. They are a physical component of the turf product itself. So that protection should last the lifespan of that turf product. The warranty will differ from manufacturer to manufacturer and from installer to installer. The manufacturer's warranty generally covers defects of the product, whereas the installation warranty is offered by the installer and usually covers defects with the installation, like they screwed something up with the base and they installed it, and basically will come out and correct any errors. So making sure that your turf product is covered by a good enough warranty to justify the purchase. Again, it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer, but do some research on the warranty and make sure that whatever pet turf product you're considering does come with a manufacturer's warranty, and speak with your installer to make sure that they offer an installation and service warranty as well, to make sure you're obviously protecting your investment. So looking at pet turf versus other landscaping options, these are four of the most common and what are considered like pet-friendly ground covers. We have natural grass, pea gravel, wood chips, and pavers. So going in order, we have natural grass, which is usually the ground cover that most people install pet turf to get away from, or install artificial grass in general to get away from, especially with pets, because dogs wreak havoc on natural grass. Their urine is very high in nitrogen, which causes brown dog urine spots. Anyone that's ever had a dog will know the sign, just brown circles in your grass from where dogs pee, and that's a buildup of nitrogen in the soil, basically chokes off the grass and kills it wherever your dog is urinated. Natural grass also requires a significant investment of time and money in maintaining it. So keeping a natural grass lawn with a dog is extremely difficult, and is even more difficult in areas like the South, like Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, anywhere where it's already extremely difficult to maintain natural grass. Throw a dog in the mix and it's pretty much impossible. Pea gravel is a decent alternative, but it is messy, and it can't or doesn't prevent your dog from digging, so your dog can make an absolute disaster and fling it everywhere. It's noisy, and it also gets hot in the sun. And for larger dogs, the pebbles or stones can get stuck between the pads on their paws and cause a pretty good amount of discomfort. Wood chips, same thing as pea gravel. They're easy to make a mess with. They need regular replacement and are largely comfortable for dogs, but can poke or basically give splinters in the pads on their paws. Pavers, they look good, but they get really hot, and who wants to lay on cement all day baking in the sun? So pavers may be an aesthetically pleasing landscaping option, but not the most pet friendly. You can do pavers mixed with artificial grass. You basically have the pavers laid and then install artificial grass in the gaps between the pavers, which usually looks really good and provides a perfect paver grass ratio. So that would be a more pet friendly alternative to just having pavers by themselves. So how much does fake grass for dogs cost to install? Cost covers both material and labor, and variations in cost can be attributed to product quality, your geographic location, and the complexity of the installation, amongst a number of other factors. Pet-friendly artificial grass, generally speaking, tends to be higher quality and therefore is usually more expensive than traditional artificial grass. So the average cost of fake grass for dogs, this national average is taken from 7 different websites that basically all presented different metrics for the cost of artificial grass. So I took the metrics from the 7 most authoritative websites that I could find ranking on the first page of Google, took their national average costs and basically added them up and averaged them out. And by most authoritative websites, I'm referring to, excuse me, Angie's List, or I'm sorry, Angie, Home Advisor, Home Guide, Lawn Starter, Lawn Love, Bob Vila, and I believe one other. And the range of prices here, you can see on the low end, you're looking at about $3,000, and the high end, about $76.98. But the national average being $53.90. Now we have the cost per square foot, which for materials and labor is around $12. The low end being $6 and the high end being $18. And again, these prices will differ based on a number of factors, but just to give you a general idea of what you might expect to pay, these are those metrics. So now we get into the important cost metrics, the maintenance cost comparison, which is usually where we see the biggest disparity in costs between synthetic grass and natural grass or sod. For the purposes of this comparison, we'll be looking at the maintenance costs for pet turf using a 1,000 square foot installation over a 25-year period, and natural grass for the same size space over the same time period. So fake grass for dogs maintenance costs, we're looking again at 1,000 square feet over 25 years. And in the table on the right, you can see we have power brushing once a year, spraying with a hose, basically just the annual cost of water for rinsing your turf, so you rinse it weekly. Replenishing your infill, looking at $100 or $200 a year. And I included, just to make the comparison more balanced, I included a professional turf refresh, which is offered by companies like Dirty Turf or Turf Fresh. They both offer, I believe, like quarterly, semi-annual, annual, biannual turf refresh services or turf cleaning services. And you'd have to check their websites out to get the exact details, but I included that because that's the best way to ensure that your pet turf lasts as long as possible, is having a professional come in. And considering how much it costs to install initially, I think $400 a year is well worth it, just to know that your turf is properly cleaned and is being looked after as well as possible to ensure you get the most use out of it over its lifespan. So the total annual cost was $681, and then you can see I have 5, 15, and 25-year maintenance totals, which I'm not going to read out, but in a coming slide you'll see a side-by-side comparison with the natural grass costs for the corresponding timeframes. This slide, natural grass maintenance costs over, again, a 25-year time period with 1,000 square foot space. So mowing and edging, this is assuming we're in a place where mowing isn't necessary for 6 months out of the year, so we have 26 times annually mowing the grass, about $1,200. So that's basically having your lawn mowed once a week for 6 months. Spring and fall cleanup, fertilizing and weed control or herbicide, aeration, any issues with sprinklers like sprinkler repairs, watering. And the watering is just the annual cost of water for a 1,000 square foot natural grass space. The total annual cost for a 1,000 square foot natural grass area was $3,114, and then I have the 5, 15, and 25-year totals for those. And jumping over here, we have the initial installation cost of the pet turf as well as the initial installation cost for natural grass. The natural grass installation includes laying sod for 1,000 square feet, installing a sprinkler system, and the cost of water for the establishment period of that sod, which is basically after you lay the sod, you have to water it a bunch to ensure that the roots are able to take root within the soil. So looking at them side by side, the installation for pet turf, we have $12,000. That's for a 1,000 square foot pet turf installation at $12 per square foot is the average per square foot cost. The natural grass, you're looking at $31.10.50, and the annual cost of maintenance for each of them for pet turf is $681, and for natural grass, $3,114. So after 1 year, you can see pet turf is basically double the cost of natural grass. But as we project out, after 5 years, natural grass has surpassed pet turf by about $3,200. And 15 years out, it's basically doubled, actually more than doubled, the cost of maintaining the same size pet turf installation. And 25 years, it's almost triple. So after 25 years for pet turf, including a annual turf refresh of $400, after 25 years for the pet turf, you're looking at $29,025, and that's including the initial installation. So taking away the initial installation of $12,000, you're looking at more like $17,000 for just the maintenance over the 25 years. The natural grass, for if we take away the installation again, you'd still be looking at about $77,000 and some change for maintaining natural grass over that time period. And that doesn't include needing to resod or reseed that lawn, which natural grass usually needs to be replaced every few years. So this is showing the installation and maintenance cost comparison of pet turf and natural grass. Pet turf is the green line, natural grass or sod is the orange line. And you can see on here, the crossover point or the break-even point is right about 4 years. It's actually less than, just under 4 years. And after that, after the 5-year mark, you can see natural grass just begins to take off at a pretty steep climb, whereas the pet turf maintains a reasonably flat trajectory. So I think this illustrates pretty clearly the difference in the cost of installing and maintaining pet turf as opposed to natural grass or sod. So when will you see a return on your investment in fake grass for dogs, or when will you see the ROI, which I believe I just covered, but just under 4 years. I went with 4 years for this. On the low end, 3 years, and on the high end, 7 years. And regarding financing for your pet turf installation, what are your options? You have home improvement loans, credit cards, or financing through vendors. Most installers have a relationship with some sort of financial institution to offer financing to their clients. So I recommend speaking with your turf installer to see what options they offer regarding financing your pet turf installation. I do not recommend number 2. Credit cards will just kill you with interest. A home improvement loan might be worth considering. But these are 3 of the most common financing options for installing pet-friendly artificial grass. So some tips to save on the cost of installing pet turf. Get multiple quotes. Don't just go to one installer, get a quote, and say, yeah, let's do it. Go to multiple installers, get quotes, and then use those quotes to get the installers to compete against each other. Kind of like buying a car and going to different dealerships. You want to get the best price possible, so it doesn't hurt to get quotes from multiple installers and then say like, whoa, I like what you guys are offering, but so-and-so said that he can do this price. Can you guys meet me in the middle or do something to make up the difference? Another thing is choosing your materials wisely. And I'm going to hold off on going into more detail on that one until I do the third, which is do the prep work yourself. So labor is about half the cost of installing artificial grass, and a significant portion of that labor is preparing the space where you want to install pet turf. A large part of that preparation is basically removing any existing ground cover like natural grass and the top few inches of soil right underneath it. That's so that the base material can be added and compacted to provide a solid level foundation for your turf installation. So speak with your prospective or intended installer about how you can save money by doing the prep work yourself. Make sure you speak with them, because you don't want to do a bunch of prep work and find out you did it wrong and then they have to fix it anyways. So speak with them, just tell them that you want to save money in the install and you're willing to do the prep work yourself. You have a friend that's a landscaper and has the equipment and said he would help you take care of it. The money that you save on the prep work, you can basically roll back into your installation and put towards either a higher quality turf product or higher quality auxiliaries like infill or the base material. So you can go for ensuring that you have the highest quality materials for your installation as a whole by knocking off what is likely a few $1,000s by doing the prep work yourself, depending on the size of your installation. So that brings us to the end. Information on the screen right now is for the Turf Network, and we are an information hub and directory, a growing directory of artificial turf companies throughout the United States. The information hub part of that is there is so much growth taking place within the artificial turf industry that it's kind of hard to know what the heck is going on and to find consistent quality information pertaining to synthetic grass, artificial grass, pet turf, whatever you want to call it. We want to create a space where people can learn about artificial turf and educate themselves in order to make the most informed decision possible when it comes time to have turf installed or get repairs or have services done on their turf installation or compare it to other landscaping options. And we are growing the directory of artificial turf companies throughout the United States, and will continue to add new content and new companies to the site. So I recommend checking it out at turfnetwork.org, or you can give us a call or email me directly. My email address is on the screen right now. And that is all I have. Thank you for taking time to watch this. Again, I am Kevin with the Turf Network, and I hope you have a good day.